check under the bed and make sure there's no Disney executives under there?
Oh, not again.
Yeah, only this time, it wasn't just me. They were taking all my favorite people and replacing them with diverse women complaining about the patriarchy.
Nothing has brought me greater joy than watching the Walt Disney Company absolutely panic over the last few weeks. They're mad at South Park because they're making fun of their woke ideologies, constantly race swapping or religion swapping everything in their movies.
I love what you said about wanting to entertain audiences, critics saying Disney's too woke, but you're just putting out storytelling.
We are. Look, I don't really like the term woke because I think it's an umbrella term that I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means, and one could argue that sometimes it's used too liberally. That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
Disney, despite losing over $1 billion on their last 4 movies, as they continue to shove woke politics into people's faces who just want to go to the movie, laugh, cry, and go home. Look, people don't want to be lectured when they're watching a movie, and they certainly don't want to be told that they're bad people. But that's what Disney continues to do.
I'm not 100% sure I even know what it means.
So Snow White slept and waited for her prince to come, but he never did. Because a woman shouldn't have to depend on a man. Snow White was brought back to life by a lady doctor.
And she lived happily ever after?
Well, she couldn't indulge in strenuous activities like handball, but otherwise, she was fine.
That's nice.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business.
I did not like Snow White. The reason why is that the actress that plays Snow White, she acts like a bitch all the time.
Weird.
Weird. I don't need your business.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on. And everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
I don't need your business.
Thanks.
Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that your favorite childhood fairy tale princess has been completely ruined. Instead of the sweet and dreamy Snow White you grew up with, she's been turned into a serious life coach, lecturing you about everything wrong with the world. That's exactly what Disney did with Rachel Zegler's new version of Snow White. They took a beloved classic, sprinkled it with a heavy dose of modern virtue signaling, and tried to sell it back to audiences.
Of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
Disney to learn and still seemed confused when no one showed up to watch it. It's like Disney threw the story into a cultural blender and served it cold in a theater emptier than a gluten-free bakery in Bavaria. The trouble started when Rachel Zegler gave interviews that instantly rubbed people the wrong way.
They're leaning in.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash. I mean, you see with Disney now. I mean, Disney, one of the most gay-friendly companies that we've had in a very long time.
And Disney decided to hire the most insufferable girl boss narcissist that exists on Earth, who hates Snow White.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
She criticized the original Snow White story, calling Prince Charming a stalker and promising that the new Snow White wouldn't be wasting her time dreaming about true love.
It's no ordinary apple, my dear. It's a magic wishing apple.
A wishing apple?
You offer it to me freely. In place of the patriarchy, you would have a queen! Not white, but diverse, inclusive, and equitable! I will become the leader I know I can be! All shall love me and despair!
Oh, what has she done to you? Fear not, first love's kiss can break any curse.
Because apparently, that's an outdated and silly idea now. Fans, who were simply hoping for a sweet retelling, with the 7 dwarfs, catchy songs, and maybe a pie baking scene, instead got what felt like a long TED Talk about oppression and patriarchy. And it didn't help that Zegler's Snow White had the warmth and charm of a broken space heater. If you thought Disney would have learned a lesson after the failure of Lightyear, you'd be wrong. Apparently, corporate self-destruction has now become part of their business strategy. Of course, South Park didn't miss a chance to jump into the chaos. They aired an episode titled Woke White, The Reinvention, where Cartman is turned into a grumpy princess who fires every male character and replaces them with diverse women who constantly complain about the patriarchy. They even threw in a hilarious cameo of Kathleen Kennedy screeching, "Make it more lame!" Disney executives were furious. Reports said they squealed like pigs at a barbecue, demanding the episode be pulled. But South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone responded to the cease and desist letters the same way they always do, with fart jokes and new contracts. Meanwhile, Zegler's team also tried to pressure Comedy Central into removing the episode, which only made things worse. Because nothing screams female empowerment like trying to silence 2 middle-aged cartoonists. If you found yourself laughing harder at Disney's meltdown than the evil queen's cackling, you weren't alone. Tap that like button. The internet sure did, but the roasting didn't stop there. The Simpsons jumped into the fun too, airing a parody called Snow Woke, The Reimagining.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it. All right. Congrats, Ray.
In their version, Snow White is so allergic to romance that she files a restraining order against Prince Charming before the story even begins. The irony? The Simpsons is owned by Disney, so now Disney is roasting itself on its own network. You can't make this stuff up. Inside Disney, the whispers began. Executives talked about brand integrity, but it was clear they didn't know what that even meant anymore.
She is crapping on the original production. I was scared of it. Oh, it was so weird. It was a stalker. Like, I feel like if you are taking on the most iconic Disney role ever, genuinely, like this was the most prolific Disney film, I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence.
Out in the real world, ticket sales crashed faster than Bob Iger's blood pressure. Merchandise that was supposed to fly off, shelves ended up in the clearance bin next to leftover Minions plushies. Somewhere, in a sad, forgotten warehouse, there's a mountain of unsold Snow White popcorn buckets staring in silent judgment. Enter Joe Rogan and Bill Maher, 2 very different guys, but united in their disbelief. Rogan ranted that Zegler's interviews were basically a masterclass in how to turn off half your audience before the movie even released.
This is their policies coming back to bite them. They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her because then you're going after...
Maher joked about the absurdity by flashing a picture of 7 unemployed dwarf actors, pointing out how progress sometimes means firing the very people you claim to protect. Their audiences, made up of millions, nodded in agreement and asked the question no one at Disney seemed brave enough to ask.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is, and I'm sorry that chivalry and a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene.
If you hate the original story and the people who love it, why even bother remaking it? But modern Hollywood seems to think that every classic story needs to be ripped apart and rebuilt like a broken IKEA shelf. Remove the legs, slap on a lecture, and then wonder why nobody wants to sit on it.
This girl took the money and then decided that she wanted to go out there and, you know what, I'm going to take my stand. Well, you should have made that stand before you took the money to promote a film, because that's not in line with your job description.
When the movie finally opened, calling it a hit would be an insult to actual hits. Snow White flopped so hard it barely made a sound. Pictures surfaced of Rachel Zegler and a few loyal friends sitting in an almost empty theater. They even tried to cheer themselves up by recording a TikTok, chanting her name at the screen. It felt like a birthday party where the clown canceled. But the parents still made everyone sing. A trip to the concession stand didn't help either. There were more employees than customers. Even the special Snow White popcorn buckets looked embarrassed. Backstage, Jack Black, Hollywood's unofficial truth teller, reportedly confronted Zegler and told her straight up that her interviews had done more damage than the movie itself. Some insiders said the tough talk pushed her toward therapy, which would mean Tenacious D accidentally contributed to mental health awareness. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, also caught some criticism. Reviewers said her performance felt less like a wicked villain and more like Wonder Woman trapped in a perfume ad. The chemistry between Godot and Zegler was so flat that one Disney executive supposedly snapped, "We spent $200 million to make a Hallmark movie villain and a main character who hates fairy tales." Disney's PR team scrambled to fix the disaster. They reshuffled trailers, scrubbed Zegler's social media, and set up awkward interviews where she smiled and insisted kids would love the film. If, of course, they enjoyed being lectured about intersectionality during story time. Meanwhile, leaked set photos showed the new magical creatures. Basically a bunch of random CGI characters that looked like leftovers from a rejected Narnia sequel. Little person actors who had lost out on the chance to play the Seven Dwarfs slammed Disney for what they called progressive discrimination. It sounded like a joke, but sadly it wasn't. At the box office, the disaster continued. Snow White barely made $40 million against a production and marketing cost of over $200 million. Disney shareholders panicked as they realized the once unstoppable entertainment giant might have actually forgotten how to entertain. Analysts predicted massive layoffs, restructuring, and creative course corrections. Corporate speak for, maybe we shouldn't destroy every fairy tale we touch. Some producers, overwhelmed by the chaos, ordered crates of antacids while interns desperately combed YouTube comments for even a hint of positive feedback. Spoiler alert, they found more. Love for Morbius. South Park, always ready for round 2, cashed in by selling Make It More Lame t-shirts. The Simpsons slipped in even more jokes about Disney Plus turning into the home of the lecture, and meme creators had a field day. Viral images of snow woke posters, Rotten Tomatoes scores colder than the Arctic, and fake kids' books with titles like No Man Needed filled the internet. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a clip of Cartman wearing Mickey Mouse ears and shouting, "Respect my diversity, authorita!" went viral. The louder Disney tried to insist this was progress, the more audiences pushed back, asking, progress towards what? Bankruptcy? In the midst of this train wreck, Disney lawyers started sending takedown notices to parody channels, which only backfired spectacularly. Each takedown just gave the channels free content to laugh about. Every time Disney tried to silence the jokes, they created new viral videos making even bigger jokes out of themselves. It was like watching brand erosion set to free-form jazz played on a kazoo. Yet somewhere in a Disney boardroom, some focus. Group probably still insists the next remake needs even more moral messaging because the data shows audiences love lectures. This is the same data that probably once said Cats would beat Avengers Endgame at the box office. So can Rachel Zegler bounce back from this mess? Maybe. Hollywood has a very short memory. But first, she might need to stop blaming the audience for not liking her movie. Every defensive social media post just pushes people from being mildly annoyed to full-on rooting for her downfall. A wiser star might apologize. But Ziegler's feed is filled with motivational quotes about female leadership, sandwiched between passive-aggressive scoldings of so-called toxic haters. That might build a brand if your goal is to be known as the celebrity who mistakes. Backlash for bravery. But it's not great for career longevity. Meanwhile, inside Disney's crumbling castle, there are reports of executives panicking about upcoming remakes. Some are even suggesting, gasp, just telling the original stories again. But those ideas get drowned out by new memos about carbon-neutral tiara manufacturing and other corporate distractions. For audiences, the decision has already been made. Families that once rushed to Disney matinees are now choosing Mario Kart. Tournaments, and Netflix binges. Collectors skipped the dolls that looked less like fairy tale friends and more like lab experiments. Even streaming doesn't seem likely to save Snow White, with early reports showing that viewers are turning it off halfway through. The only group making money off this disaster? YouTube commentators, who are turning Disney's collapse into more viral gold. At the end of the day, one truth stands strong. Audiences just want a good story. They're fine with new faces, different cultures, even new spins, as long as the heart of the story feels real. What they reject is being scolded for wanting simple, joyful entertainment.